for the sake of introduction, I'm Wanok. My other name is Godfrey. I'm an optometrist from Uganda and currently a PhD student at the University of Edinburgh. I'm also the immediate past president of the Optometrist Association of Uganda and currently the chairperson of the Education Committee of the African Council of Optometry. So that is briefly all that you need to know about me. If anyone needs to know anything more than that, just feel free to drop a message in the chat and we shall be able to share the other details. So what we have displayed on your respective screens is the agenda, and we shall start with a brief housekeeping. As I've already been mentioning, make sure that you keep your videos on if you're really comfortable. We know there is significant time difference. Others, it's pretty bright, and then others, it's already late in the night. So you're welcome to turn on your videos. It improves on the level of interaction and the discussions. But if you realize that your video is actually on by mistake, we shall make sure we turn it off. But yeah, in the meantime, you're all welcome. And make sure that if you have anything to say, try to use the reactions that we have. You can raise your hand. You can use the chat box in case of any question, and we shall make sure that everything goes as planned. We shall also give you an opportunity to share any other thing at the end of this particular session. So thank you so much. I'll keep breaking in once in a while to just give you all the other details and reminding you of the rules that we shall be playing by as far as this particular session is concerned. So without wasting any more time, we would like to go into an opening prayer and would like to ask if there is any volunteer who's willing to take us through this second item on the agenda. Please let us know. Anyone who's willing to just take us through the opening prayer, that would be really appreciated. It doesn't matter the religion at this point, but whoever prays first will determine the religion that will take over the last prayer session. So would anyone like to take us through the opening prayer? Any volunteer? Feel free to either unmute or just raise your hand and we shall be able to inform you.
Let's pray.
Hello. Yes, Dr. Christian. Thank you.
In Jesus' name. Father, we thank you. We give you praise. We worship you for who you are. Thank you for another beautiful opportunity you've given us this evening to gather, to learn, to share ideas. Father, we thank you because we know that you are here in our midst. Blessed be your name forevermore. At the end of this session, we'll have every reason to say thank you. Thank you to, we thank God for our speakers, the presenters. Thank God for the organizers, for the African chapter of the American Optometry. Father, we worship you, we magnify your name, and everything we do, the glory will go back to you. Be thou exalted. In Jesus' mighty name we prayed. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Christiana, for that. Yeah. So without wasting any more time, we shall start with a brief announcement about the Academy 2025, and that will be led by Professor Tuwani. Professor Tuwani, you're most welcome. You just have a few minutes to just give us announcements about the Academy 2025. Professor Tuwani, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Boston 2025 is just around the corner, and the African chapter of American Academy of Optometry is excited to be partnering with Vosh International this year. So you will have seen in the WhatsApp groups that there's a Google form that that has been circulated, and we like each and every one of you to complete that. And we want, because of that, we are going to send the names of those who will be going to Boston this year to Vosh because of this partnership that we have with Vosh, so that we can do hotel bookings, group hotel bookings. And we need to know the numbers of fellows and also candidates who will be traveling to Boston. So we want to send the names or the number as soon as possible. Actually, we want to send it by tomorrow morning. So please complete that Google form. And the other thing exciting is, I think those who were in New Orleans, you all know that we had a party, an African party. So we are trying to partner also with Vosh in order for us to have also a party, an African party. And Voice has also suggested that they would like to to have a dinner. Um, in that dinner, they would like to raise funds for African students. So this is a very great initiative, and I would like all of us to really support this achievement. More of this will be, during the course of the month or next month. We will give you more details on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Tuani, for that. Yeah. And yeah, Professor Tuani has been referring to, excuse me, a WhatsApp group that has been receiving all this information. Excuse me. Yeah, so if you are not on that particular platform, would kindly request you to put your phone number in the chat and you'll be added onto that WhatsApp group, just in case the communication, you can't really connect with the link that Professor Tuani has been referring. So yeah, thank you so much. Moving on, as we've already seen on our agenda, before talking about self-care, which will be presented by Dr. Lucinda, we want to receive a foundation and to see what has been done. So there is a research presentation that will be done, which will give us a foundation about the magnitude of what we're trying to deal with. So that is about mental health conditions and burnout about amongst eye care practitioners, and that will be presented by none other than Dr. Ayomi Kun. Then we shall proceed to the next phase. So Dr. Ayomi Kun, if you're on board, kindly unmute, and if you're happy, I can go ahead and share your presentation.
You can, sir.
Dr. Kun? All right. Perfect. Over to you, Dr. Yomiko. Sorry in case I'm pronouncing your name wrongly. You can go ahead and introduce yourself, introduce the team, and go ahead and share with us this information. Thank you.
All right. Good day, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am Ayomikun Nifemi Downsi, and I'm a clinical optometrist at the University of Medical Science Teaching Hospital in Ondo State, Nigeria. And I'll be giving a presentation on work we did, and together with myself, Doctors Shraibu, Dr. Obia, Dr. Gadimo, and our president of the chapter, Dr. Levi. We did a study on mental health, well-being, and burnout among the Nigeria optometrists. And it's important to note that the work is being prepared for submission. All right, so basically, without further ado, let's get into the work. Mental health disorders are actually a global public health concern, and is affecting healthcare professionals, including optometrists, we found out that mental health is a thing that has been growing lately, even though in this part of the world, awareness is still low. And also, it's important to know that because of the heavy workload and the limited resources that affects our emotional demands, it brings about and contributes stress, anxiety, depression, which are all mental health disorders, and also burnout. So it's important to know that increasing demand for eye care services, the inadequate infrastructures, and also the growing patient population can place significant pressure on eye care practitioners and even we optometrists. However, it's sad that there isn't any study that has attempted to actually check or investigate on the prevalence of mental health conditions among optometrists in Nigeria. However, looking at literatures, we found a study in Australia that was done by Bentley et al. In 2021, where they actually did a survey on the prevalence of mental health conditions and burnout, where they found out that about 31% of the participants experienced moderate to severe psychological distress with similar rates of depression and anxiety. And also, from the study, we actually found out that eye care practitioners, specifically optometrists, are actually vulnerable to mental health challenges and burnout. So, why did we do this study? Actually, we did this study because generally mental health awareness has increased. There is an increase in mental health awareness in every part of the world. But then in Nigeria and Africa at large, healthcare professionals' mental health has actually been under addressed. So we did this study to actually provide a valuable insight into mental health challenges faced by optometrists and emphasize our need to improve mental health support within the healthcare system of our country and in Africa at large. So it's also to help us highlight the struggles we face as optometrists in our workplace and also our professional satisfaction, how we're able to properly present our patients with a proper health care, and also to add to the literature on occupational health. So what we did in this study was actually a cross-sectional survey where we assess the stress, anxiety, and depression with two tools. We use DAS and also the Matchbow burnout inventory. And also from this study, we did it among optometrists in Nigeria and we collected our survey via Google Forms. We had participants, we got an approval from the Nigerian Optometry Association, and also we were able to send the e-link for the survey via WhatsApp to the WhatsApp community that housed about 1,963 members of it. And also, we did the study for 3 months between August, September, and October. So now, we made use of two important tools for the study. We made use of DAS 21, which we used to measure the depression, anxiety, and stress. And also we used the Marshall burnout inventory that helps to measure burnout level through three dimensions: emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and personal achievements. We made use of several statistical tools, and also we made use of frequency, percentage, and also we used chi-square to test for associations between demographic factors and mental health outcomes. We had about 233 participants for the study. So now we go into the result and what we got from our study. From the study, we actually found out that our participants, most of them were female, and majority were between the age of 20 to 39. at about 68.4%. And also, we had about 21% of our participants post being postgraduate. That's those who has gone for other degrees after their Doctor of Optometry. And we noticed that most of our participants work in private hospital, and most of our participants are based in Lagos, much more in Lagos than Edo State and FCT, that's Abuja. Now, looking at what we found, we actually found out that though the stress, anxiety, and depression level is still a little bit not as much, we found out that at least one, looking at the graph there, we see that there is at least there is in the population, we found out that about 56% of our participants complained or noticed at least one of either stress, anxiety, or depression. And we also found out that this is actually a very important thing to look into, where at least 56% of our participants noticed either of stress, anxiety, and depression. Also, looking at the burnout, we found out that we noticed a bit of depersonalization, and we also noticed a bit of um, problems with burnout, which are detailed in the graph we are seeing. Now, we checked the association between mental health, burnout, and demographics using chi-square, and we actually found a significant relationship between age and depression, burnout, and depersonalization, and also personal achievement. I remember that we said that we had a population of people ranging from age 20 to 39 to be the highest number of our participants. And now from our chi-square, we've actually found out that there is a significant relationship between age and distance. Also, we found out that marital status was significantly associated with burnout and depersonalization. However, we found no significant association between religion, religion, education, and other demographic variables. So, from our findings, we noticed, like I said, that 56% of our participants experienced at least one of the three conditions, with 24% reporting to experience all the three. So we found out that there is actually a significant relationship between age and burnout, age and burnout and depression, depersonalization. That also explains how that at every stage of your career as an optometrist, the likelihood to have a unique stressor or having a coping challenge is possible. And also from a study from a review we read, we found out that younger practitioners we have to face difficulties like having to adapt with the profession responsibility, and also having to get their career all together, having to navigate the uncertainty of job, having to navigate job insecurity and the likes. Also, for adults, we also found out that the monotony of having to do the same thing over and over again can affect the mental health of individuals. So, while most participants actually reported low level of burnout, the high prevalence of stress and anxiety underscores the need for a targeted intervention to support the mental well-being of optometrists. This includes having to foster supportive work environments, fair compensation, opportunities for professional growth, which is essential to actually sustain morale and motivate. Also, it's important to know that having programs, webinars like this, and recreational activities, mental health awareness campaign, and accessible professional counseling also help with mental health development. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ayomi Kun, for giving us that foundation. If you have any questions, please just hold on to it. We shall come back to that later during the Q&A session. And we believe that this particular presentation has given you some foundation and a background about why this particular session is actually very important. We do believe that even if this study was conducted in Nigeria, it's actually representative of what has been happening or what is happening in the other parts of Africa and all over the world. So thank you so much, Dr. Yomikum and your team for putting that together. If you have any questions, just keep note of them. We shall come back to that during the Q&A session. So moving on, the next item on our agenda is the self-care that is supposed to be led by Dr. Lucinda Jones. We've received a lot of information about Dr. Lucinda, and I believe most of you have read some bit of her background. But I'll just go ahead and share with you some brief background. We should take a short period of time in case you didn't have enough time to really go through Dr. Lucinda's bio. So Dr. Lucinda is a registered counseling psychologist in private practice in Durban, Westville, with a special interest in trauma, diversity, illness narratives, autoethnography, and couples therapy. Prior to her private practice, she was a lecturer in the discipline of psychology at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and she also taught part-time at Varsity College and South African, College of Applied Psychology. Additionally, she supervised intern psychologists at Durban University of Technology. These experiences have enriched her understanding of various psychological theories and practices that allowed her to implement innovative teaching methods to foster a reflective learning environment. Dr. Lucinda has facilitated workshops on emotional intelligence and clinical supervision, emphasizing the importance of experiential learning and reflective practice for professional and personal growth. As a facilitator, she aims to create a safe space that encourages self-reflection and helps individuals develop skills to navigate interpersonal challenges. She has been a guest speaker for various communities, including the Autoimmune Support Group, the Ramakrishna Clinic of South Africa, Minara Business and Professional Women, Relay for Life, and CANSA. She will tell us what that means in full. As a guest speaker, she believes her goal is to improve participants' level of awareness in an engaging and reflective manner. So with all that background, we can just wrap it up by saying Dr. Lucinda is actually a dedicated counseling psychologist with expertise in trauma, diversity, illness narratives, autoethnography, and couple therapy. She has a strong academic background. Her commitment to the field extends to supervising a lot of students and also interacting with people like you and me in her clinical practice. And based on this background, we all believe that Dr. Lucinda is the right person to take us through such an important session that we as optometrists and other eye care practitioners actually need in our daily routines or in our service to mankind. So thank you so much, Dr. Lucinda, for honoring our invitation, and I will hand over the floor to you. Thank you so much, and over to you.
Thank you. Wow. Your summary of, my work was well said. There's such a difficulty, I think, that we all experience when we've asked to write a bio of yourself and go, what do I put out there? How do I describe who I am and what I do? Thank you for that. Yeah. When I was reflecting on this workshop and this talk, initially I put self-care as the forefront. So that was part of the core of coming together today. And then as I went through, I thought, wow, what about storytelling as part of self-care? We come from an amazing continent where storytelling is part of who we are. And part of my PhD was on storytelling, telling my own story around breast cancer, my stories around how did I also lean into experiential approaches. And the reason I work more with couples now and families than before. So it's wonderful to be here and to share with you some of my knowledge. I can share with the people that I work with is that I do not see myself as an expert. I learn from the people that I engage with. I see myself as a student and one who is curious to learn, and a person who is comfortable to put herself in very uncomfortable positions at times. Yeah. So thank you for making me feel welcome and comfortable as I begin to share some of the topics or the areas that can be quite uncomfortable and unsettling for us all to engage with and to share, and yet quite rewarding. Yeah. Okay. Godfrey, are you? Oh, thank you to move it for me. Wonderful. So storytelling is a therapeutic tool. It's also part of our cultural identity as well. I think we all have stories within our families, what we've heard about members within our families, in our communities as well. Stories intrigue us. Stories kind of wrap us in to learning, to wanting to know more, not only about ourselves, but the people that we engage with. And so storytelling has been a technique that's been used in mental wellness as well. And one technique that or approach that I used was called narrative therapy. And for me, that was such a wonderful space to be in because as I was learning it, is that how we tell our stories and how we may present ourselves, or even the stories we tell ourselves, have shaped us, have shaped our world, that we need to at times reauthor and we need to edit. Because some of the stories may not be our words. They may be words of our mom and dad, our siblings, our teachers, pastors, priests, gurus, any special people in our lives, our friends who have shared stories with us or have informed us about how to live our lives or their thoughts, and we have taken those on as our own. And so through this technique of understanding what our words are and the words we use and the way we speak and speak about our own journeys is a healing one. And so in mental wellness, it becomes important because it can be seen as a self-care technique to understand who we are and the reason we are actually here and the reason we connect and we need a connection with people and even a connection with parts of ourselves as well. So when you're looking at mental wellness, and I'm so grateful, I'm after Dr. Dahansi because I don't know if I pronounced your surname correctly. My apologies. You lay the amazing foundation for my talk. It's a wonderful way to kind of spring off and go into what is mental wellness. And it's seen as this capacity to navigate difficulties, to overcome the obstacles that may be in our path in our life. And mental wellness also looks to us and goes, wow, do you have the personal strength and the capability of making sense of what you're experiencing, of being able to regulate not only your emotions, to understand your thoughts as well, and to contribute to other people's lives in a very positive way. And mental wellness also includes your intentionality. It means that you intentionally take part in and you participate in a particular act, a particular connection, a service as well, because it comes from a very good place in your heart and in your soul, within your being. It also involves emotions, as I mentioned in the name, it's mental wellness and social dimensions as well. So mental wellness can be seen as a very holistic approach, the way we understand it. And so when our lives are, experiencing this burnout and financial stress and, working in spaces that can be very uncomfortable and stressful, we start to question who we are and our own well-being in terms of mental, financial as well. In terms of emotional fatigue, when we are going through this phase of managing stress and burnout as well, depression, anxiety, emotional fatigue is where we feel the sense of despair, this helplessness, the sense of, am I capable? Am I going to make it? It's such a struggle to get through this anxiety, through the depression, through the burnout, which is primarily occupational burnout. I'm there every day assisting people. And so you find that there are physical, symptoms that you experience through this emotional fatigue, and it could be this irritability, becoming maybe the anger. It could be also around just the frequency of, for some, nervousness, tearfulness is part of the symptoms. You may find that there's a difficulty in concentrating on focusing what is important in your life, in your workspace as well. There could be memory loss here and there because you're so overloaded with work that you may forget certain things, And then there could be this decline in this enthusiasm to do a work that you once found so passionate, that you were compassionate about. And then even the way you think about yourself and your workspace may be quite negative. And that's part of just the emotional fatigue exploration. So going through this exploring self-concept becomes so important because it will lead you into a space of going into who you are, right? And I'm going to ask Godfrey to take us to that slide, please, to explore the concept of self, right? Next one. I spoke a little bit about storytelling, mental wellness. I covered that. Emotion, yeah. So just one back. Yes, the self-care. Brilliant. Thank you. I will cue you for the next one because I know it in my head, so I'm just like speaking it through. So self-care, it's when we think of what is self-care, most times we go, okay, we're gonna need to take a break, we need to take a little holiday, or I'm gonna eat my favorite cake, or spend time with family, read a book. We think of self-care as doing a particular task as well, which it is. It is part of doing a task, but it's very intentional when it comes to self-care. It's quite intentional practice and behavior. And the reason it's so intentional is because you're focusing on supporting your entire well-being, your physical, emotional, mental, your spiritual health as well. And so the tasks that you choose, that you select, they are to address personal needs. They are to address what you really need in terms of your physical well-being, emotional connection, as I say, even your spiritual health. And so when you think of self-care, it is about the self, all of you, quite holistic about who you are. Most times, at times you see as self-care as an indulgence, as I was saying, it's like, okay, I'm going to go do the coffee with friends, tick off my list, I've done that. Yet your soul and your body has not been fully replenished or energized. And so you start thinking, oh, I did spend time with the people that I love. How it is that I still feel so disconnected to myself and still feel so fatigued and overwhelmed. And so when we choose self-care practices, it's to keep in mind and in your heart, it's intentional. It's an intentional practice you do to take care of your needs, the unmet needs of being appreciated, cared for, of tapping into your being, right? So there are certain practices that I take in terms of self-care. And it's what I share with the people that I work with as well. There are moments where I intentionally sit on the deck and I have a beautiful place where I stay where there's a stream in front of my home. And I take 5 minutes every morning to sit and ground myself in that space and take note of nature around me and not sit and think of what do I need to do next? How long is this going to take? Am I overwhelmed by something? I bring myself into this space and ground myself. The other things that I do as well is I have now put into practice that when I think of someone, is to make the effort to contact them and to touch base with them. Because I believe that our lives become so overwhelming with so many things that we came, oh, I need to call you. I didn't speak to this individual. And so I now have put it into my practice. I think of someone, send a message, make a call, which is feeding into the relationships, the kind of support that I would need as well. Right. So as I touched on a bit, is that it's extremely holistic. It's all of you, every part of your being to consider that space. And it's very conscious. It's about awareness of what you need. It's about meeting those needs. So part of the practice could be, and part of the strategies could be to sit down and make a list of what exactly are my needs. What it's not more, it's more than once. What are my needs? What are the needs that may not be met in my workspace, for example? And how can I attain those needs and experience those needs in other spaces in my life, different relationships? So it's important to be so self-aware and reflective and mindful of what you may do for yourself in terms of self-care. Yeah, I can go to the next slide. Yeah. So in terms of optometrists, the groups, I mean, it's so amazing. I was reflecting on the workshop I did with you last year, with the group last year, and the play on those words, the I and the I, the vision. Through your examination and your tests and being present with the people you work with, you allow them to see and to be connected with the world. And I recall in that talk, and even this one now, it connects so well, it links so well, is to look at yourself at the I. As a professional, this identity as an optometrist, that's a part of who I am. What are the parts of me, of I, the self, that I need to take care of? And the study that was presented touched on a few of these things. And so it was such a wonderful opportunity to hear the links and to know that a study like this is being done as well within Africa. And I'll touch a bit on just on the physical health. We all are aware that exercise, stretching, just becoming so physical in our being is important to us. There are times we may not be able to go to the gym. There are times that taking care of our body is not prioritized. It's kind of lost on the list. And physical health is extremely important even for mental health. So it could be doing a 5-minute walk, doing 10-minute stretch, something that connects you back to this body that you are in, this very body that serves people, that assists people, that facilitates healing, is to turn to self and go, what does my body need? To know that this body connects you to the world as well. We touched on a bit, and I think the study as well touched on a bit on professional and also career growth, particularly when you're a young optometrist, this need to develop your skills, and it is important to do so as well. But also it links to just your career growth, the level of competencies and the pressure to perform, the pressure to know particular strategies and techniques. And it can be extremely overwhelming and anxiety provoking, as the study has revealed as well. Within that space is the cultural consideration and the context in which you work in, the dynamic of your workspace, the culture and ethics of the work. You could be staying late at work, or the workload becomes so overwhelming, you're unable to manage patients that you need to see within the day. Your record keeping, connecting or networking with colleagues for assistance as well. All those factors could create or trigger anxiety and stress, right? And so can financial wellness, to be able to have a living standard that brings comfort into your space and security into your space. And so you can see how the workspace in itself could tap onto these various parts of you, and it can trigger feelings of anxiety, depression that come from insecurity, that comes from a certain fear as well. Right. Thank you. The next slide. So I'm just going to briefly touch on some of the strategies, and I put out all of a list, 2 slides actually, and just to kind of give a little bit of insight into what may work for you. It's to acknowledge your uniqueness. It's to acknowledge how you have seen or experienced feelings or emotions in your own life, and to use that awareness to choose strategies that best fit your lifestyle and who you are at this stage. I briefly touched on managing the workspace, where you may wish to ask for assistance or to delegate work. It's about become very mindful of how is my workspace, the room that I'm in, trigger my own emotional state, or how can that workspace support and care for me for what I offer. So it's so important to walk into that space and see, feel, notice what that workspace actually does and offers, right? So that is so important to do. The other is looking at emotional resilience. And I touched on this a bit before in terms of how do you deal with people who have vision problems, and that can be so emotionally taxing because they're telling you their story, they are sharing with you, they are bringing anxiety with them, sadness, depression, uncertainty. And so in that space, it's for you to contain and hold that person and manage as best as you can. And when you're outside of that space, it calls on self-reflection. It calls on going, what happened to me when I was in that workspace? It calls on either seeking counseling. It may be the fact that you're going to lead into a support group, a group like this that builds up your emotional resilience. Mindfulness, I mean, it's been a practice for many years. And if you look at the word, it's to really be full within the mind, the story that you may tell yourself about who you are, editing that story. You know, when I'm in session and people bring up words like, oh, I'm very mindful of how to speak or mindful of how to connect with people, I then use the opposite. I'm like, so at times there may be a mindless, you know, where you're feeling less than or not able to connect with who you are. And when you're in that state, what happens? What really happens to you when you feel you're not actually connecting? So the mindfulness practices could be a lot of the body stuff, breathing exercises. You're very mindful in terms of meditation. You know, yoga is also part of that as well. It could be being grateful. There's lots of research around gratitude and practicing gratitude. And the example I gave about my story, you know, in the mornings, it's grounding me to be grateful just before the day would start. And that gratitude shifts not only your entire being, it does have a shift even on the brain as well. I touched a bit about regular exercise and the body, continuous learning. It's so important to have community engagement, to connect with people, like a community like this now, which links to support, it links to being seen and heard. It allows you to question and to support each other, which is so key. Okay, the next slide. So in the space as well, I think it's so important, and again, this links to the self-reflection part, addressing stigma that may pop up within your workspace. Stigma that patients, the people you work with may actually engage with, where the stigma to come and see you, the eye problem or condition. It's addressing that within the workspace. It's also addressing within yourself about the identity of being an optometrist as well. For me, in my profession, the profession I'm in, there's a stigma about going to see a psychologist. That if you do, then there's something mentally wrong with you. You are crazy. And now many people are realizing they're coming to a space, into a counseling space, is extremely useful and beneficial to know oneself more. And it's not about being labeled or less about being labeled as crazy or depressed or anxious. This is about self-care. This is about knowing who you are, about being mindful. There's a lot of studies and work on work-life balance and what does that mean? What stood out for me in the study, in the results, was that burnout was shown more or higher with people who were married and in a couplehood, right? And so you're attempting to connect with a relationship, a partner, family, as well as your work life that will provide for the family, provide for you. And how do you do that? How do you come to a place where you saying, okay, 6 o'clock, everything is turned off and I'm focused on me and my family? Because work life kind of blends into our personal life. And we can get so kind of caught up in that because there's demands, we need to end it. So there's a lot of reflection about what does work-life balance mean for me and how can I uniquely understand it, experience it that suits my lifestyle. For those in private practice, managing business is stressful. And I'm sure you're aware there's many unexpected or unknowns that pop in to take care of not only the patients you're working with, but staff, your billing, your own training, your point system. It's a lot to oversee. And so it's even being mindful of those stresses that come up by being in private practice. And this is kind of links in with the strategies because the last few link into financial security, which is part of self-care to be financially secure. It's also part of what can trigger stress, anxiety, and depression. Because am I going to be able to provide for myself and my family? Do I have enough in terms of money? Have I invested? What forms of insurance do I need to look at? What's my retirement plan? When is the best time to start planning all of this, And so these are key explorations for yourself to go into. Sharing success stories, like in this group as well. In inspire not only yourself because it motivates you, through your stories, you motivate others as well. They pick up and they learn, and that's the value of storytelling. It's about speaking about a challenging case or what you learned and how you understood it or how you perceived it or how that experience shifted the way you see yourself and the value of sharing that particular story, for example. Quickly, it's about, setting realistic boundaries within your personal space, within your workspace. And in psychology, there's so much written around boundaries because there's different forms of boundaries. Boundaries of your time, the boundaries of your workspace, the boundaries of your thoughts, your body. And so it's about, again, reflecting, even in self-care, what are my boundaries around time, what I share, and who do I connect with, right? And I touched on this before, is to delegate tasks where possible, where you can call for help. Yeah. Next slide, please. Right. So this is one of the examples. I kind of changed the wording a bit. But it captures a good friend of mine and an optometrist who recently graduated with her PhD. And her study was looking at rural schools and going into schools and hearing their stories about wearing glasses, about going to get their eyes tested. What did that mean for them? And she related to me how just testing the child's eyes, and providing him with glasses so he could see really touched her heart. She said for her, it seemed such a simple thing to have done. It wasn't a big a deal for her. For this child and for his family, it was huge. It impacted on just his engagement in class. It impacted on even the way the family would see him, and for her to be part of that story of his life that she could contribute made such a difference to her. And I'm so grateful for her as well because along her journey, when she's doing her PhD, she invited me in to engage and to reflect on her experiences because she was saying it's so new for her to start asking people about their stories, to ask more reflective questions. And so along the journey with her, it was wonderful to hear her aha moments and her willingness to say, wow, I took this job as very cognitive at times, head measure, this is what it means. Where her heart came so connected with what her job offered to others to be able to see, to engage in their lives. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, for listening and for holding the space for me. Yeah. And I just put there your story because I was just wondering, it was an opportunity for you to share with us on both the first presentation, even mine, about your own story. So this is where I can open the floor and hand it back to Jeffrey. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Lucinda, for that presentation. Yeah, Dr. Lucinda deserves a loud round of applause, but because we're online, we can't really hear that. But thank you so much for this
Thank you.
wonderful presentation, and it's pretty timely. We believe that everyone really needs this type of presentation, at least at one point in life, especially the point of the stigma, what surrounds mental health, and many people have a lot of attitudes about this particular condition. So thank you so much for sharing. And just like Dr. Lucinda said, this is now a time for you to share your story. And since we mentioned this meeting is being recorded, but in case you feel like asking a question or sharing something off record, please feel free to let us know and we